My name is Thomas Walker. I am 65 years old. I recently stepped away from my job after spending most of my life working in commercial real estate development in Toronto. My wife Linda and I have been married for 38 years. Together we raised 2 children. Our daughter Ashley is 36, and our son Brian is 32. 5 years ago, Ashley married a man named Kyle. From the outside, they seemed like a happy couple. Still, if I am being honest, I never fully warmed up to him. There was always something about Kyle that felt a little too polished, a little too practiced. Sometimes when he spoke, it felt like he had already rehearsed every word in his head. But Ashley loved him, and for a long time, that was enough for me. At least, that is what I told myself. My daughter and her husband decided to throw my 65th birthday party at their cottage in Muskoka. The place sits right on the lake. It is a beautiful property. 3 years earlier, Linda and I had helped them buy it. Ashley had called me weeks before the party. "Dad, you have worked your whole life," she said. "Let us take care of you this time. Just come up, relax, and enjoy the day." It sounded nice. I figured it would be a quiet afternoon with family and a few friends. Instead, there were nearly 40 people gathered on the back deck that afternoon. The weather was perfect for early September. The lake looked calm and bright in the sunlight, and a soft breeze drifted through the trees. People laughed, drank wine, and talked while music played quietly in the background. My grandchildren, Olivia and Ethan, ran across the lawn waving sparklers that had been left over from Canada Day celebrations earlier in the summer. They were giggling and chasing each other while the adults watched from the deck. I stood near the railing holding a glass of my favorite Scotch whiskey. It was the expensive bottle I saved for special occasions. Ashley knew exactly which one I liked. I remember thinking that everything felt pretty close to perfect. Then Linda grabbed my arm. She leaned close to me and whispered, very quietly, "We need to leave right now. Do not ask questions." At first I thought she was joking. I figured maybe she was teasing me about sneaking away from the crowd for a break. But when I looked at her face, I realized something was very wrong. Linda was not joking. "Come with me," she said softly. "To the car. Right now." "What are you talking about?" I asked. "The party just started. I have not even cut the birthday cake yet." "Thomas," she said. Her voice sounded calm, but her eyes were full of fear. "Trust me, we are leaving." After 38 years of marriage, I had learned something important about my wife. When she used that particular tone of voice, you did not argue. You listened. So I set my drink down on the deck railing. I smiled and waved at a few guests as we walked through the house, trying to act like nothing was wrong. Inside, though, my stomach had started twisting itself into knots. Something serious had happened. I just did not know what. We reached the driveway and got inside the car. As soon as Linda closed her door, she locked all of them. Then she pulled out her phone and opened a screenshot. She held it out to me. "Read this," she said. At first, I could not even understand what I was looking at. It was an email conversation between Ashley and Kyle. I started scrolling. Within seconds, my hands began to shake. The first message was from Kyle to Ashley. It had been sent 6 weeks earlier. "He has been taking the capsules regularly," Kyle wrote. "No suspicion so far." Ashley had replied. "Every morning with his coffee," she wrote. "He believes they are the herbal supplements you recommended. He even said he has been feeling more energetic lately. Kind of ironic, if you think about it." Kyle answered again. "Good. Dr. Patel confirmed the timeline. At this dosage, we only need another 8 to 10 weeks. When it happens, it will look completely natural. Heart failure. No one will question it, especially considering his age and the stress from selling the business." Ashley wrote back, "Are you completely sure about the dosage? I cannot risk him getting seriously sick and ending up in a hospital before then." Kyle responded, "I am sure. I have done the research. This is pharmaceutical-grade digoxin, not some amateur poison. The beauty of it is that it mimics heart disease, fatigue, irregular heartbeat, some nausea, all things that make sense for a 65-year-old man. By the time anyone even thinks about testing for it, it will be far too late." I barely managed to open the car door before I leaned over and vomited into the bushes. Digoxin. I knew that name. My mother had taken that exact medication years earlier for her heart condition before she passed away. In the proper dose, it helped regulate the heart. But if someone who did not need it took enough of it, it could stop the heart completely. I wiped my mouth and turned back to Linda. "Where did you find this?" I asked. "On Ashley's laptop," she said quietly. Tears were running down her face now. I went inside to use the bathroom. Her laptop was sitting open on the bed. I was not snooping, Thomas. I swear I was not. But I saw Kyle's name in the email window, and something inside me told me to look. She shook her head slowly. I just had a feeling. Maybe it was a mother's instinct. There has to be some explanation, I said, even though deep down I already knew there was not. Maybe they were talking about someone else. Linda looked at me. Keep reading, she said. So I kept scrolling. There were dozens of messages. Page after page of planning. Careful calculations. My own daughter and her husband discussing my death like it was a business project. Ashley had written in one message. Once Dad is gone, Mom will be devastated. She will probably move in with us, or at least somewhere close by. We can manage things better then. Kyle replied, the estate should be about $14 million after the sale of the company, correct? Split between you and your brother, that leaves $7 million for you. He continued, but if we handle this carefully, we might challenge Brian's portion. He has been distant from the family for years. Hardly involved at all. We could claim that your father was not mentally competent when he prepared the will. Ashley answered, Brian will not fight us. He has always been passive. And even if he does push back, we can drag the case through the courts long enough that he eventually accepts a smaller settlement. Kyle responded, perfect. The cottage renovations will cost around $800,000. After that, we can finally buy the boat I have been talking about. And Olivia and Ethan's private school tuition keeps getting higher every year. I felt like my chest had turned to stone. My daughter, my little girl, the same child I had taught how to ride a bicycle. The girl who used to cry on my shoulder after her first heartbreak in high school. The young woman who had walked down the aisle 5 years earlier while holding my arm. She was slowly poisoning me. For money. We need to call the police, Linda said. And tell them what? I asked. That we read some emails on her computer? They will call it a family dispute. Ashley and Kyle will delete everything, and we will look like two paranoid old people. Linda wiped her eyes. Then what do we do? I sat quietly for a moment, thinking. Finally, I said, we need real proof. Something nobody can argue with. Thomas, you have been taking those capsules every morning for 6 weeks, she said. You need to go to a hospital. Not yet, I said. If I show up at the emergency room claiming someone poisoned me, Ashley and Kyle will immediately realize we know. We need to handle this carefully. Right there in the car, I called my attorney, Robert Hayes. Robert had managed my legal affairs for more than 20 years. I trusted him completely. Robert, I said when he answered, I need your help, and I need you to keep this completely confidential. He paused. What is going on, Thomas? I explained everything. To his credit, Robert did not question whether I was certain. He did not waste time doubting the story. Instead, he immediately began thinking through the situation. First thing, he said, come to my office. I know a doctor who makes private house calls. Very discreet. Dr. Angela Park. She can run blood tests without filing any immediate reports. We need to confirm what is in your system. After that, we can start building a case. He paused for a moment. But Thomas, if you have really been taking digoxin for 6 weeks, we must make sure you are safe. That is the priority. Linda and I drove straight to Robert's office in downtown Toronto. The trip from Muskoka took about an hour and a half. During the drive, I sent Ashley a message telling her I was not feeling well and that we had decided to leave early. She replied almost instantly. Oh no, what happened? Are you all right? Do you need anything? Reading that message made my stomach turn again. Dr. Park met us at Robert's office that evening. She was in her 50s, calm and professional. She drew several vials of blood. Then she checked my heart rate and blood pressure. After that, she asked detailed questions about how I had been feeling during the past 6 weeks. Have you experienced headaches? She asked. Yes, I said. I assumed it was stress from selling the company. What about nausea in the mornings? Yes. Any vision problems? For example, seeing yellow or green halos around lights. I stopped for a moment. Actually, yes, I said slowly. I thought maybe I needed new glasses. Dr. Park exchanged a glance with Robert, then looked back at me. Those are classic signs of digoxin toxicity, she said. I will have laboratory confirmation tomorrow morning. But based on what you are describing, I would say you have definitely been ingesting something that should not be in your system. Linda's voice shook. How dangerous is it? Digoxin poisoning can be extremely serious, the doctor said. The drug directly affects the rhythm of the heart. In high amounts, it can cause irregular heartbeat, heart attack, or sudden cardiac arrest. Since you are already showing symptoms, the level in your body is concerning. Can you help him? Linda asked. Yes, the doctor said. But he will need treatment to remove the digoxin from his body. And he must stop taking those capsules immediately. I threw them away before we left the cottage, Linda said. Every single one. That night, Linda and I checked into the Four Seasons Hotel instead of going back to our house. I no longer felt safe there. Robert arranged for 2 security guards, both former police officers, to stand watch outside our hotel room door. But even with protection, I could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ashley at different ages. 7 years old, with a big gap between her front teeth, climbing into my lap so I could read her bedtime stories. 15 years old, crying because a boy at school had broken her heart. 23 years old, standing proudly at her graduation from the University of Toronto with a degree in business administration. I had been so proud of her. So proud. Where had I gone wrong? You did not, Linda whispered in the darkness beside me. She had been awake too. You were a good father. You gave her everything. I stared at the ceiling. Maybe that was the problem, I said quietly. Maybe I gave her too much. Do not do that to yourself, Linda replied. Linda and I raised both of our children the same way. They had the same home, the same schools, and the same opportunities. We treated them equally. At least we always tried to. Our son Brian turned out just fine. Brian lives out in Vancouver with his partner. He works as a marine biologist studying ocean ecosystems. Over the years, we had grown a little distant, mostly because of the physical distance between us. Life gets busy and people drift apart. But Brian was a good man. Honest. Kind. He would never do something like this. Should we tell Brian? I asked Linda that night in the hotel room. She shook her head slowly. Not yet, she said. Let us deal with this first. The next morning, Dr. Angela Park called at exactly 7 o'clock. Her voice was calm, but serious. Thomas, your digoxin levels are extremely high, she said. You currently have about 10 times the normal therapeutic amount in your bloodstream. If you had continued taking those capsules for another month, as your daughter and her husband planned, you would have died. She paused for a moment before continuing, and it would have looked exactly like natural heart failure. The words hit me like a punch in the chest. My own daughter had been poisoning me slowly, day after day, watching me get weaker. There is something else you should know, Dr. Park continued. I examined one of the capsules your wife saved. It does not contain only digoxin. There is also a small amount of a beta blocker mixed into it. What does that mean? Linda asked. It is actually quite clever, the doctor said. The beta blocker would hide some of the early warning symptoms of digoxin poisoning. You would feel tired and weak, but not sick enough to immediately seek medical attention. I rubbed my forehead. Kyle, I said quietly. He works as a pharmaceutical sales representative. He would know exactly how to do something like this. Later that morning, Robert Hayes arrived at the hotel with a private investigator named Patricia Lawson. Patricia was a woman in her early 60s with short gray hair and a gentle, grandmotherly appearance. If you saw her at a grocery store, you would probably think she was the sweetest person in the world. Robert explained that she had spent 30 years working as a detective with the Toronto Police Service before retiring. According to him, that friendly appearance often caused people to underestimate her. She shook my hand and got straight to the point. I have handled a few cases like this over the years, she said. Not many, thankfully, but enough to know how these situations usually unfold. She looked at me carefully. First question, she said. Do you want your daughter to go to prison? The room went silent. Linda began crying again. I sat there for a long moment before answering. I honestly do not know, I said. I want justice. I want them held accountable for what they tried to do. But she is still my daughter. Patricia nodded slowly. I understand that. But you need to prepare yourself. If we move forward with this legally, Ashley will face very serious charges. Attempted murder. Conspiracy to commit murder. Those crimes carry significant prison sentences. She leaned forward slightly. And if you decide not to pursue it, then she walks away after trying to kill you. And there is no guarantee she would stop. People capable of something like this rarely stop after one attempt. I knew she was right. What should we do? I asked. We need stronger evidence, Patricia said. The emails are helpful, but a skilled defense attorney could argue that they were taken out of context. They might claim the messages were some kind of dark humor or misunderstanding. She paused. We need to catch them continuing the plan. How would we do that? I asked. Patricia gave a small smile. We give them exactly what they want. She looked directly at me. Thomas, you are going to become very sick very quickly, and we are going to see how your daughter and her husband react. The plan was simple, but risky. Dr. Park would monitor my health while I pretended to suffer a sudden decline. The goal was to see whether Ashley and Kyle would try to stop me from receiving proper medical treatment or attempt to speed up my deterioration. Before we could start, though, Robert needed to secure the evidence we already had. That afternoon, he filed an emergency motion with the Ontario Superior Court. He requested an order to preserve Ashley's electronic devices and communications. His argument was straightforward. There was credible evidence of a conspiracy to commit murder, and without immediate court intervention, that evidence could easily be destroyed. The judge assigned to the case was Justice Eleanor Caldwell. She reviewed the emails privately. 2 hours later, she granted the order. That same afternoon, police officers arrived at Ashley and Kyle's cottage with a search warrant. They seized laptops, mobile phones, and several tablets. About an hour later, my phone rang. It was Ashley. She sounded frantic. Dad, the police are here, she said. They are taking all our electronics. They will not tell me why. What is going on? It took everything inside me not to scream at her. Instead, I forced myself to stay calm. I do not know, sweetheart, I said. Did they arrest anyone? No, but they are treating us like criminals, she said. Kyle is furious. Dad, can you help? Can you call someone and find out what is happening? I will see what I can learn, I told her. Then I hung up. Linda had been watching me the entire time. I cannot believe she called you for help, she said quietly. After everything she has done. She does not know that we know, I said. As far as she is concerned, she still has us completely fooled. The next phase of the plan began. Dr. Park temporarily paused my treatment so that the digoxin still in my body would continue affecting me. Almost immediately, I began feeling worse again. My heart felt unsteady. I was tired all the time. It was not entirely safe, but it helped make the situation believable. A day later, I called Ashley. I am not feeling well, I told her, letting my voice sound weak. Actually, I feel pretty bad. Chest pains. Trouble breathing. Oh my God, Dad, she said quickly. You need to go to the hospital. I do not want to make a big fuss, I said. Maybe I should just rest. No, she said firmly. You should definitely see a doctor. For a brief moment, her concern sounded genuine. A small part of me wondered if we had somehow misunderstood everything. Then she continued speaking. Actually, she said, why do you not come stay with us for a few days? I can keep an eye on you. Make sure you are eating properly and taking your supplements. There it was. She wanted me back under her control, back where she could continue giving me the capsules. That is thoughtful of you, I said, but I think I just need some rest. Dad, I insist, she said. Mom must be worried. Let me take care of you. Maybe in a few days, I said. Then I ended the call. Patricia, who had been listening on speakerphone, nodded. She is trying to regain access to you, she said. That supports the intent we suspected. Over the next week, Ashley called constantly. She offered to bring me meals. She offered to drive me to doctor appointments. Several times, she offered to bring me the supplements that had supposedly been helping my energy. Every conversation was recorded. Under Ontario law, only one person in a conversation needs to give consent for a recording. Meanwhile, investigators were examining the devices seized from the cottage. The evidence they discovered was overwhelming. On Kyle's laptop, they found hundreds of internet searches. Undetectable poisons. Symptoms of digoxin overdose. How to avoid murder charges. How to challenge a will in Ontario. There were also text message conversations between Ashley and Kyle. In one exchange, Ashley wrote, "He sounds really sick. Maybe we should slow down for a while." Kyle responded immediately, "Are you kidding? We are almost finished. Once the will is read, we need to move quickly about Brian's share. I have already spoken with 3 lawyers about strategies to challenge it." In another message, Ashley wrote, "I feel guilty sometimes." Kyle answered, "You will feel much better on our new boat. Remember why we are doing this." But the most damaging evidence came from Kyle's phone. Apparently, he had been photographing the capsules he prepared. Investigators found a folder containing more than 40 photos. Each one was labeled with a specific date. He had been documenting his own crime. When Robert told me about it, I shook my head in disbelief. Why would anyone be that careless? I asked. Robert shrugged. Arrogance, he said. He believed he was smarter than everyone else. He never imagined anyone would look closely. 2 weeks after Linda first discovered the emails, prosecutors formally filed criminal charges. Ashley was charged with attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and fraud over $5,000. Kyle faced the same charges, along with an additional charge for illegal possession of prescription medication. The arrests happened at dawn. I was not there, but Patricia later told me exactly how it went. Ashley screamed that it was all a mistake. She insisted we had set them up. Kyle tried to run. He made it about halfway across the backyard before officers tackled him and placed him in handcuffs. 3 months later, the preliminary hearing took place. Linda and I sat quietly in the courtroom while the prosecutor presented the evidence. The emails, the photographs, the text messages, laboratory analysis of the capsules, Dr. Park's testimony about the dangerous level of digoxin found in my blood, Patricia's testimony describing the investigation. Ashley refused to look at me during the entire hearing. She sat beside her attorney wearing a gray suit, staring straight ahead. Kyle leaned over, constantly whispering to his lawyer and gesturing angrily. Eventually, it was my turn to testify. I explained how Ashley had first given me the capsules 6 months earlier. She told me they were a special herbal supplement that Kyle recommended for improving energy and heart health. I described how I took one every morning with my coffee, how Ashley often called to remind me not to forget them, how she always sounded so caring and concerned about my health. The prosecutor asked me one final question. Mr. Walker, did you ever suspect that your daughter was trying to harm you? No, I said quietly. Never. She is my daughter. I trusted her completely. And if your wife had not discovered those emails, what do you believe would have happened? I took a slow breath. I believe I would be dead. The defense lawyers tried to argue that the emails had been misunderstood. They suggested the messages were taken out of context. Ashley's attorney even claimed that Kyle might have been researching digoxin for his pharmaceutical work, and that the emails were simply poorly worded. The judge did not appear convinced. At the end of the hearing, the court ruled that there was enough evidence to proceed to a full trial. Ashley and Kyle were released on bail, each posting $500,000. The judge also ordered strict conditions. Most important of all, they were forbidden from having any contact with Linda or me. In the end, Ashley and Kyle never managed to post bail. They had already spent far too much money preparing for the life they expected to live after I died. Lawyers, renovation plans, expensive purchases they had already started planning. They had counted on my money before I was even gone. The trial finally took place the following spring. It lasted 3 weeks. Linda and I sat through every day of it, listening to the evidence again, hearing the emails read aloud, seeing the photographs Kyle had taken of the capsules he prepared, every detail laid out in front of a courtroom full of strangers. When the case finally went to the jury, they deliberated for about 8 hours. Late that afternoon, the jury returned, guilty on every single charge. When it came time for sentencing, the judge did not hold back. This was a calculated and premeditated attempt to murder a parent for financial gain, she said firmly. You violated the most fundamental trust that exists between a parent and a child. The court finds no meaningful mitigating factors. Ashley was sentenced to 22 years in prison. Kyle received 25 years. The judge explained that his pharmaceutical training and his role in preparing the poison made his responsibility even greater. As officers prepared to lead them away, Ashley finally looked at me. Her face was streaked with tears. Black mascara ran down her cheeks. Her lips moved silently. I am sorry, Daddy. I did not respond. I simply took Linda's hand, and we walked out of the courtroom together. The next day, Brian flew in from Vancouver. We met at a quiet restaurant on the Danforth. I had not told him much over the phone, only that there had been serious trouble involving Ashley. When I finally explained everything, the color drained from his face. She tried to kill you, he said slowly. For money. Yes, I said. And she was also planning to challenge your share of the inheritance, I added. She and Kyle intended to fight you in court once I was gone. Brian pushed his plate away. I do not understand, he said. We had the same childhood, the same parents. Why would she do something like that? I shook my head. I have asked myself that question every day for the past year, I said quietly. I still do not have an answer. Brian looked down at the table. I am sorry, Dad. I should have visited more often. Maybe if I had been around, I would have noticed something. This is not your fault, I told him. This is entirely on Ashley and Kyle. After a moment, Brian asked the question I had been dreading. What about Olivia and Ethan? Ashley's children. My grandchildren. That part hurt the most. Olivia was 8 years old. Ethan was 6. They did not understand why their mother had suddenly disappeared from their lives. They did not understand why they were now living with Kyle's parents. And they did not understand why Linda and I were no longer allowed to see them. Kyle's family blamed us for everything. They insisted that we had fabricated evidence and framed their son. Eventually, they obtained a restraining order that prevented us from contacting the children. I lost my daughter and my grandchildren at the same time, I told Brian. And I honestly do not know if I will ever get them back. Not long after the trial, Linda and I sold our house in Toronto. There were too many memories there. Too many reminders of the life we used to have. Instead, we moved to a smaller home in Stratford, near the theater festival. Life there is quieter. We take long walks along the river. Sometimes we attend plays at the festival theater. It is a slower pace, but in many ways it feels healthier. We both started therapy, individual counseling, and also sessions together as a couple. The money from the sale of my business now sits in a trust. We set aside funds for Olivia and Ethan's future education. When they turn 18, they will be able to access it if they choose. It does not matter whether their mother is still in prison or not. Linda and I also donated $2 million to the Canadian Poison Control Center. Another $1 million went to organizations that support families dealing with domestic violence and elder abuse. Because that is exactly what happened to me. Elder abuse. Financial exploitation. Our therapist explained that these situations occur far more often than people realize, especially in families where significant money is involved. I am 67 years old now. Dr. Park says the digoxin poisoning caused some permanent damage to my heart. I take medication every day now. Real medication this time. Prescribed by doctors I trust. I get tired more easily than I used to. But I am still here. Still alive. Sometimes I sit quietly and wonder what I did wrong. Was I too generous? Too trusting? Did I protect Ashley from consequences too often when she was growing up? Did I make her feel entitled to things she never truly earned? My therapist reminds me that Ashley made her own choices. But it is difficult not to feel like I failed somehow as a father. Linda and I talk about it late at night when neither of us can sleep. We replay old memories and try to notice warning signs we might have missed. The time Ashley borrowed money from Brian's college fund when she was 19. The way she sometimes seemed to calculate everything around her. How she eventually chose Kyle, a man who valued wealth above almost anything else. We taught her to work hard, Linda said once. We taught her to be ambitious. But we never taught her to be a murderer. Then where did it come from? I asked. Linda shook her head slowly. I honestly do not know, Thomas. Brian visits us more often now. Last month he brought his partner, David, to spend the weekend with us. We attended a play at the theater festival and had dinner afterward at a small restaurant downtown. For a little while, everything felt almost normal. At the end of dinner, David asked me a quiet question. Have you ever thought about writing to Ashley? My answer came quickly. No. Then after a moment, I added more softly. I would not even know what to say. Maybe you could tell her that you forgive her, David suggested gently. I do not, I said. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Linda reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Forgiveness is not really about her, she said quietly. It is about you. About letting go of the anger. I am not ready for that, I said. And the truth is, I still am not. Maybe someday, but not yet. What this experience has taught me is that trust is fragile. Even family can betray you. In fact, family sometimes has the greatest ability to hurt you because they know exactly how to get close and slip past your defenses. I also learned that love without accountability can be dangerous. I loved Ashley without limits. I never questioned her motives. I did not force her to face the consequences of her mistakes when she was younger. And in the end, she used that love against me. I have also learned that money can change people. Or maybe money simply reveals who they truly were all along. The promise of wealth, the comfort it offers, the doors it opens. For some people, those things become more important than integrity, more important than family, even more important than love. But I have learned something good as well. Partnership matters. Linda saved my life. Her instincts, her courage, and her willingness to act quickly kept me alive. After 38 years of marriage, she proved that when everything truly mattered, she would stand beside me and fight for me. And I have learned something else. Justice matters, but it does not heal everything. Ashley is in prison. Kyle is in prison. They are paying for what they did. But some mornings I still wake up with the same instinct I had for decades. I reach for my phone, thinking about calling my daughter to share a joke or ask how the grandchildren are doing. Then reality comes back, and the grief starts all over again. If you are hearing my story, I hope you take something important from it. Watch for warning signs. Be careful if someone shows unusual interest in your will or your estate. Pay attention if family members try to isolate you from others. Be cautious if sudden health problems appear without clear explanations. Most important of all, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate it. Do not allow love to blind you to danger. Family can be the greatest blessing in your life, but sometimes it can also become your greatest vulnerability. Keep your financial decisions private and thoughtful. Do not give anyone, not even your children, unlimited control over your money or your medical care. Maintain relationships with multiple trusted people, lawyers, doctors, friends who can offer honest outside perspectives. If you plan to leave wealth behind one day, talk openly with your children about expectations. Do not let them build their lives around money they have not earned yet. Encourage them to create their own success and their own stability. Most importantly, cherish the people who truly care about you. The ones who love you for who you are, not for what you can give them. The ones who would protect you if something seemed wrong. Linda and I are building a new life now. It is smaller than the life we once had. Quieter. But we have learned to appreciate simple things. Morning coffee together. Walks along the river. Evenings at the theater. We have realized that real security is not about money or family legacy. It is about knowing exactly who you can trust when everything else falls apart. I think about Olivia and Ethan often. They are 10 and 8 now. One day they will grow up and learn the truth about what happened. They will become old enough to decide whether they want a relationship with us. I have written letters to them. Those letters are sealed and stored with my lawyer. When they turn 18, they will receive them. In those letters I explain everything. What happened, why we could not be part of their childhood, and how deeply we love them. Maybe they will read the letters and understand. Maybe they will throw them away without opening them. I truly do not know. All I can do is hope that they grow up to be better than their parents, that they value integrity more than wealth, family more than fortune. As for Ashley, she will be eligible for parole in about 11 years. She will still be young enough to rebuild some kind of life. I do not know what kind of person she will be by then. I do not know if we will ever speak again. But I do know one thing. I survived. I survived the poison she put into my body. I survived the betrayal that should have destroyed me. And with whatever time I have left, I want to make something good come from something terrible. That is all any of us can really do. Survive the betrayals, learn the lessons, and try to leave the world a little better than we found it. Even when the people who hurt us were the ones we once loved the most. Especially then.